I'm not even reading tonight. Thank you. Keep clapping. I'll take another sip if it'll make you clap. Refreshing. Hello, everybody. How's it going this evening? Good. Thank you all for coming out tonight for While You Were Sleeping. Sorry for the late start. We had a lot of people to get in here, a lot of folks on the wait list who made it in. Believe it or not, there were a lot of people who wanted to come to this show tonight. My name is Brian McGuigan. I'm the program director here at Richard Hugo House and your host for this evening's event, the second installment of our 2011-2012 Hugo Literary Series. In about 2 weeks, my wife and I are expecting our first child. Everyone procreates. People get all congratulatory about it. It's like, this is what people do. When I tell people this, everyone seems to have advice, whether we ask for it or not. By far, my favorite has come from my wife's boss, who said, "Savor every diaper change. Before you know it, they'll be wiping themselves." That's what he said to me at the baby shower, the office baby shower was blown away. But the one piece of advice that I've heard most often is get as much sleep as you possibly can. Because once that baby comes, you won't sleep for the next 18 years.
More than that.
I think that was a mom who said that. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way, though. Sleep is not cumulative. Too much, and it could be a signal that you may be suffering from depression, or at least have a really bad case of bedhead. Too little, and over time, you could develop migraines, heart disease, diabetes, varying psychosis, or you could possibly die. No one told me these were the side effects of parenting. However, my sleepless 18 years will mean I'll be fully acquainted with the themes from the stories and songs we're going to hear this evening. From our 4 writers, Sherman Alexie, Nicole Hardy, Kevin Samsel, and Rachel Flotar. Whom we pose the following questions. What happens to us in the dead of the night when we're at our most vulnerable? And what dramas does Mr. Sandman bring our dreams when we're catching the most Z's? Please tell us, Rachel Flotar. It's going to be accompanied by Barb Hunter on cello.
My dreams have been kind of crazy lately. I'm 5 months pregnant. I had sex, I'm sorry.
She is sorry.
No, I haven't. I just, my special paper. It had all my, well, this is what happens to you when you get pregnant, is that you don't remember anything and you forget everything. At the same time. Yeah. Okay. So my writing came from kind of stream of consciousness, and that's a nice chunk of time between pillow and sleep. Usually it's panic time and thinking about lost loves and friends and freakouts and everything else. So this is just what came out. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Though the smile is faded and the long outdated reasons, the rain and the snow and the sun is above you, they no longer love you tonight. one-way circuit, caged inside each other's arms. I knew. So when you cut me over, I honestly care for you, so honey, don't you start another invasion on my heart. I honestly care for you, so honey, don't you start another invasion on my heart.
With service. Thank you, Charlie. That was Rachel Flotard and Bob Hunter. For those of you that don't know, Rachel Flotard is the songwriter and frontwoman for the band Biz Queen. And the owner of Seattle, some people know apparently, and the owner of Seattle-based Local 638 Records. Rachel often appears with her side project, Rusty Willoughby's Co-Birds Unite, and has been a contributor to the recordings of Nico Case, John Rojos, and Maggie Jorkland.
She's from Copenhagen.
I figured. And I'm not.
By way of Queens.
Rachel is currently writing music for an upcoming LP in 2012, and she has her current album out for sale. You should pick it up. It's only $10. She's also performing tomorrow night at the Paramount with Rainn Wilson from The Office. Are there still tickets, Rachel?
A couple, yeah, and it's a benefit too for the Mona Foundation.
So you should go. See Rachel twice in one weekend. And you'll hear more from her later this evening. She has a couple more songs for us. But now it's time for our first reader this evening, Nicole Hardy. Still have more to say about it. Wow. Over the last few years, we've come to know Nicole very well. She has taught and taken classes here, read at Cheap Wanted Poetry multiple times, and even took the cabaret stage dressed as Anne Sexton, backed by a band and a martini glass full of pills, which she promised me were fake. She's also the author of the poetry collections This Blonde and Mudflap Girl's Double X Guide to Facial Profiling, which was published in Main Street Rag's 2006 Editor's Choice Chapbook series. She is a Pushcart Prize nominee, whose work has most recently appeared in the New York Times, Nimrod, and Sanskrit. And her memoir, Fallen, Memoirs of a Latter-day Virgin, is due out from Hyperion in 2013. Please welcome to the stage, Nicole Hardy.
Thank you so much. I'm drinking Brian's water. It's almost like we made out. Okay, so first of all, holy crap, there's so many of you. Thank you for coming.
1,000 million thanks to Richard Hugo House for supporting me over the years, and to Shermer Lexi and Rachel and Kevin for asking me to grace the stage with them tonight. Thank you for coming, especially the 10 of you who are really loud, who actually know me and came to see me. Where credit is due, I have to tell you I've lifted a couple of lines written by the poet Tony Hoagland for my essay, which is titled, "And Another Thing Novocaine Can't Do." So I'm in the dentist chair, about to get 2 fillings replaced. My jaw is pried open so far, I imagine myself in the form of a python, eating not a mongoose, but a rubber dam, a metal clamp, an air turbine dental drill, a curved aspirator tip, and both of Dr. Robinson's hands. Dr. Robinson has been my dentist since I was 6 years old, so I can't imagine going to a different dentist, despite the fact that his hands seem overlarge. I'd like a dentist with pathological body issues in the manner of college wrestlers or Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. I want a pocket-sized dentist, like a jockey or a leprechaun. Dr. Robinson is nowhere near as small as a leprechaun, and he's currently pinching the side of my mouth to disguise the 27-gauge needle flooding my cheek with Novocaine. He's the one who extracted all 4 of my impacted wisdom teeth that happened here in the dentist office, not at the oral surgeon's. My mother was afraid I'd be one of the 6 people per 1 million people who die after receiving the gift of general anesthetic. And she was not about to let it be my time. So while everyone I knew, all my classmates and friends, and possibly even you, were sleeping soundly under a blessed spell of anesthesia, I was awake to hear Dr. Robinson break the periodontal bones in my jaw, feel the pressure required to split a molar in half, see the blood splatters on my paper bib. Dear God, make the gas never stop, I prayed. I'd seen the tray of sharp, sterilized tools rolled across the linoleum. I knew about the scalpel, the high-speed surgical burr, and the forceps. But even though the sounds of bones shattering in my head, coming from my head, are straight out of a horror movie, while high on nitrous oxide, I simply didn't care. Dr. Robinson gives me the update on his golf swing while he waits for my face to go numb. He's finally back on the course, he says, but since his recent bout with cancer, he has to club down. What used to take a 5-iron now requires a 4. There are worse things, I try to say, but it comes out, You're telling me, he jokes, and my stomach drops. Yes. He has spent the last 2 years living with a bright, pulsing knowledge of just how bad things could get. Jenny, the hygienist, says to breathe deeply through my nose. She tells me to give her the thumbs up if I want more nitrous oxide, thumbs down for less. 6 breaths in, and I am in love with Jenny. I imagine my pupils spinning like cartoon hypnosis spirals, and I'm this far from a fit of giggles. This is, counting the number of fillings in my mouth, the 4th time in my life I've been high. I grew up Mormon, and I was committed to being Mormon, so don't go wondering if I was a Jack Mormon, partying all week and playing nice on Sunday. And don't go telling that lame joke about how you always have to take 2 Mormons fishing because if you've only got one, he'll drink all your beer. I was Mormon for real. Meaning I have 0 interest in your beer or fishing, for that matter. My time was occupied by fantasies of John Stamos and the PG-rated sex comedy that was sure to make us both rich and famous. When he took a starring role on Full House alongside Bob Saget and the Olsen twins, I chose forgiveness And promptly switched my romantic allegiances to the B-list actor A. Martinez, who played Cruz Castillo on the short-lived soap opera Santa Barbara, described by one astute critic as the worst program on television maybe ever. Likewise, I did not accept the speed that was offered to me by Phil from my driver's ed class in 1987, even though I had a mad-hot crush on Phil. He was the kind of boy who thought it would be wicked awesome to raid his mother's medicine cabinet and get high at 9:45 a.m. on a Tuesday because the instructional film on parallel parking was just that boring. I, on the other hand, was an excellent parallel parker. I was way too square to think taking speed was a fantastic idea at age 15 and a half because I was Mormon, but also we were about to drive cars we didn't actually know how to operate. And I didn't see how it could go well if I were hopped up on Phil's mom's amphetamine-based diet pills outlawed in the 70s and imported from Brazil. So it was that the dentist's office became the opium den of my LDS. Reclining in Dr. Robinson's electric Pelton crane chair under the supervision of a trained medical professional, I could both keep my religious commitments and alter my consciousness. So, hell yes, I inhaled. I breathed deeply and got good and stoned because this high was not recreational. I was not skulking out to the garage before school huffing the Dairy Gold whipped cream canister Mom bought for the Thanksgiving pie. No, this was a medical procedure. I inhaled so I could be blasé about the fact that a man in a white coat and a Hawaiian shirt was drilling into the surface fully attached to my face. And despite a line of water running through the drill, I could smell smoke. I understood early on that the decay of my enamel was the one and only gateway to euphoria. What I don't get is why I ever brush my teeth. Why I didn't eat a box of Oreos every morning, sleep with my cheeks stuffed with hard candy, gargle with grape Kool-Aid every day of my teenage life. It's not that I found enlightenment at the dentist's office, but under the spell of nitrous oxide, one eases into the essence of spirit. It's not hard to imagine this floating, this absence of anxiety, this escape from all things physical, as a preview of immortality, the state of living above or beyond the body. Jenny's asking me about the gas again. Do I need more? Do I need less? I'm grinning at Jenny. Wishing I could ask, how exactly is one supposed to gauge where stoned enough is on the scale of being stoned when one is actually stoned? What I come up with is the tarantula test. When Aunt Patchett read at Town Hall, she told a story about doing research in the Amazon where she and her husband took a hike with their tour group in the dead of night. There were no flashlights, she said. Instead, there were tarantulas. Blankets of tarantulas, a carpet of tarantulas, and it was the jungle and it was scary and dark. So the group walked in a straight line so close they were pressed up tight against one another. But someone had to be at the end of the line, and that someone happened to be Carl, the husband, whose back was exposed to every terrible thing he could imagine in the dark heart of the Amazon. And what she says, he says, is not why the hell didn't we pack a flashlight? No, instead, in regards to the darkness and the tarantulas and his exposed back, what he says like a mantra is, I wish I were stoned. I wish I were stoned. Carl keeps saying it, Aunt Patchett says, until a voice further up the line resounds in the darkness. The voice says, I can help you with that. And Carl, the husband, replies, thank God what you have. And the voice says, I have the gospel of Jesus Christ as revealed to the prophet Joseph. And here is where Patchett, since we obviously have a deep mental connection, and I know that she would like to know how much I appreciated her non-offensive Mormon joke and her tarantula story, which is helping me immensely in regards to the scale of being stoned. Dear Patchett, goes the letter in my head. I wish I had a pencil. But instead, I have a demand valve inhaler attached to my face and a light in my eyes, so I don't have a pencil. But it is very important that I want to tell you about the tarantulas, because despite the drill and the very smoky smell coming from my teeth, which feel very hot, what is important is if I would care if there were a tarantula on my leg. To discover this, I use a very serious voice, even though the voice is in my head. But a serious voice is also a deep voice because it is more serious sounding, like you are a doctor. It goes deep. Would you care if tarantulas were crawling on your leg? I ask in the deep voice, and the answer is no. Then I ask, would you care if tarantulas were crawling on your arm? No. Would you care if tarantulas were crawling on your face? Only kind of. Only kind of, asks the deep voice, and my regular voice thinks weird. Finally, the deep voice wonders, what is worse than your face? And the answer is what you need to tell Carl. It turns out you can never be stoned enough to feel okay about a tarantula in your armpit. No matter what. You should whisper that part. Don't say no matter what. Whisper it like, no matter what. And be sure to make your eyes really big for emphasis. Sincerely, Nicole J. Hardy. Suddenly, there's a terrifying gurgling noise. Jenny's face is right in my face, and it seems bigger than it should be, like it's filled with helium. Like I could attach a "Will you marry me" sign to her head and set it free above Quest Field. Pardon me, the clink. Are you drowning, she says, and I nod emphatically because though I did not at first notice that I am in fact drowning. In my own spit. And it is not the tiniest bit rock and roll. Jenny readjusts the high-speed evacuation while her voice plays in a loop in my head, and I realized that Jenny did not actually say drowning. No, what she said was drowning. D-R-O-W-N-D-E-N-E. And what I think is, there's only one D in drowning. And also, a gerund is a pretty simple thing. And then I get scared. How can someone graduate high school, much less dental assisting school, without learning to pronounce the suffix ing? And since that isn't possible, and I am highly in tune with the universe and not at all paranoid, it occurs to me that I have been left alone in a room, stoned and drooling, with a woman who did not actually graduate dental assisting school. And why am I alone in the room? Where is Dr. Robinson? Without him, I am in deep trouble. Why isn't he here modeling proper dentistry and basic pronunciation? I fear Jenny will have to fill out paperwork that she will write with permanent pen, death by drowning. To calm myself down, I close my eyes, which have been, unbeknownst to me, wide and unblinking. Further calming are fantasies about my funeral. Who will be the most sad when I'm dead? Which of my faults will become quirky and or endearing now that I'm dead? What will everyone wear? I hope for gigantic hats like those glamorous ladies on Bain de Soleil commercials for that Saint-Tropez tan. But not everyone has to wear a hat. No, some could wear velveteen jackets. There could be diamonds and fake diamonds and vintage fur and fake fur, but no real fur from any year past 19 whenever we learned it was wrong to kill animals. The spectacularly handsome tenor sax player will be crying silent, manly tears behind his foster grants because there would for sure be a band made up entirely of good-looking men, tall, good-looking men. They would wear suits and they would play soulful, yearning songs written but obviously not performed by Otis Redding. If you are a man and you come to my funeral but are not handsome and or tall enough to be in the band, you could wear a fedora to accompany your velveteen jacket. You can have a feather, but not a plethora of feathers or a giant feather, but a tasteful feather, so my mother won't be distracted in her grieving with wondering if you are a pimp. She will have enough to worry about when people say it was God's will. When people say everything happens for a reason. Because no, not everything. Some suffering is predictable, preventable. Sometimes it's Jason Bartholomew lighting a match while standing in a pool of gasoline. Sometimes it's Kevin Jones ignoring the stand back and getting a 7-iron to the skull. Those things happened for a reason. Action and reaction in accordance with the laws of nature. Ooh, Dr. Robinson is back. I smile at him with hearts in my eyes. He looks deeply, sincerely into my mouth and says, distal. Rhymes with pistol. Can't be spelled like pistol, D-I-S-T-O-L. Can't be D-I-S-T-L-E, that would be distal, like thistle. Can't be D-I-S-T-I-L-L like distillery, rhymes with mistillery, which is not a word, though it sounds like one. Dr. Robinson says to Jenny, cure this. Jenny climbs into my mouth with a wand in her hand, presses a button, holds it down. I hear a whir and a beep, a bird and a robot, a burbot. I see a red light, or I imagine a red light. Cure this, says Dr. Robinson. Again, there's a whir and a beep. Dr. Robinson's brother is named Mr. Robinson. He was my 5th grade teacher. I liked him even though he asked me how such a bright girl could be such a mess when it came to math. Fractions are hard, I said. And when he taught us about the bubonic plague, he said emphatically, swollen lymph nodes. He put a hand in his armpit. He put a hand near his groin. I remember cringing. At the end of the year, there was a class party at someone's house and a pool. When I saw Mr. Robinson in his swimsuit, what crept up behind me brushed one of its 8 furry legs gently against my Achilles tendon. It was a crush of sadness. It wasn't the humanness of him, the fact of his muscular runner's thighs, his naked torso, the body hair. What wrecked my 11-year-old heart were Mr. Robinson's feet. I saw the grotesque angle of his big toe, the swollen, irritated tissue around it. Deformed by bunions, his feet were a premonition. There will come a day. Cure this, Dr. Robinson says to Jenny. His face is leaning over me now, backlit by the dental light hanging from the ceiling by its very long arm. If a light were a monkey. If a light were an orangutan. An orangey tan. If a light were Donatella Versace. I can't think of a then for my if, because Dr. Robinson's eyes are magnified to the power of why are his eyes so big? By his glasses, or a miracle of eyes. Dr. Robinson's eyes are filled with love for the soft tissue of my mouth, the glossy enamel of my teeth. This he can fix. His hair is thinner since last year and gone entirely gray. What I'm wondering is, how many times has he sent me away with an all clear, even as his disease thrummed within? Cure this, he says. I think of my friend Diane, who has been well for over a decade. I should use the breast exam chart she gave me for Christmas, the one you hang in your shower to remind you. I think of her when I purchase pink, when people show me their tattoos. She has opened her blouse to receive the needle that marks a target on her skin. A constellation, she says, 3 small dots. She has bared her chest to the beam of radiation that promises, in spite of history, to heal. It happens when she's pouring the wine, when she's telling a story, when my lungs are opened wide with laughter. The question walks up behind me. When? It whispers in my ear. The question is the math genius, a prodigy at multiplying and dividing. What if is the sister of when? Together, the twin questions enter my body, seep into the web of capillaries and veins. They course through my bloodstream. They latch on like teeth, like tumors. They are both white. They can both bite you in the ass, is what Diane would say. I think of exposure, the absence of armor, the inexplicable comfort of lying still under a lead-filled apron. A beloved writing teacher died years ago of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I still send him emails. I imagine he receives them in the highest level of the kingdom of heaven. Which is worse, I will ask? On the one hand, suffering. On the other, witnessing, bearing witness. Like the poet who must describe his mother, breastless and skeletal, oozing a fine emollient of horror and rage. She was on fire, he said, blazing up, blistered. Dr. Robinson's voice is also my voice. Cure this, he says. I see the words written in the air above us. Long after we say them, they continue to rise. Dear God, cure this.
You're pretty fun when you're stoned, Nicole. So now that you've had a little slice of the literary series, I'd like to acknowledge the businesses, organizations, and individuals who helped make this event possible. Kevin Samsel. The Stranger called him an indie lit god in this week's paper. Mighty fine praise from them. Kevin is the publisher of Future Tense Books and also works at Powell's. His books include the short story collections Beautiful Blemish and Creamy Bullets, the anthology Portland Noir, and the memoir A Common Pornography. His stories and nonfiction have appeared in print and online through the Associated Press and in places like Nerve, Smith Magazine, McSweeney's, Hobart, Sleep and Fish, Ellie Mae, Keyhole, and Yeti. Please welcome Kevin Samsel.
Thanks. Maybe I should drink out of that cup too. And we can all drink out of it, and it'll be like a orgy. I got my own cup, so it's all right. Don't worry. My story is called The Night Baby and the Apple Bell. And I guess the only thing you really need to know is that I'm 21 months old. So imagine me as a 21-month-old. I haven't decided if I believe in death or not. I'm definitely not afraid of the dark. My mom has always taken me out at night, so it just seems normal to me. I think of night and day like they're just other rooms connected to our apartment. There's the outside in the daytime room, and that's pretty nice. There are other babies and colors and people saying nice words, and the hot sun planet that I'm not supposed to look at with my real eyeballs. Then there's the outside at nighttime room, which is like the daytime room, except it's dark and it feels really, really big and endless, and there are no babies. And the words people say are loud and strange, and I'm not allowed to get out of the stroller. The darkness is a well that you might fall into, my mom says. I don't know what a well is. But I like the nighttime room best because the sun planet turns into a ball of ice with my daddy's face on it, and I can stare at it all I want without having to wear the Elvis glasses. My daddy is up there, sometimes huge and grinning, and sometimes a little smaller and looking away so I can't see his face, and sometimes he tries to hide, but I can still see a sliver of him. Is Daddy like God? I want to ask my mom, but I can't quite talk all the way yet. I can only think stuff and shake my apple bell and throw my binky. I can say Mom, Daddy, coffee, pie, hookah, bagel, store, park, mine, and no. Sometimes I can say bell, but they think I'm saying bagel. I have almost mastered apple, but it sounds sort of like elbow. Maybe I should just say elbow. My mom keeps a notebook with all the words I can say in it. It has a photo of me on the cover and the name Tony in the upper corner. For a long time I didn't know what it said, but then I figured out it was my name. I'm Tony, and I'm a baby. When I can't fall asleep at night, my mom pushes me around in my stroller. We live in a city that is always in the top 5 for worst crime. I heard someone say this to my mom once, and I wondered if it meant crimes against babies or just crimes against grown-ups. Once I saw an old man going to pee on a broken refrigerator in an alleyway, and then another man came out of the refrigerator swinging a tennis racket. And he beat up the peeing man until he wasn't moving anymore. Then I noticed that the refrigerator didn't have anything in it but a box of baking soda and some bean dip or Gerber's mashed peas splattered all over the place. I think that's what they mean by crime. Usually, though, my mom just wheels me right past the drug dealers, prostitutes, and drunks without any problem. She sings Danny Boy, but she changes the words to Tony Boy, or thinks of some other lullaby to croon. Maybe something about my daddy, the ice space in the sky. Her songs never put me to sleep, but I do become quiet and calm. My baby eyes open wide and stare down all the confused street dwellers. I smile at them and hiccup and burp and shake the apple bell and say elbow, elbow, elbow. They act like they've never seen a baby at night before, like I'm a dream or a ghost or one of those fake babies that you use to practice diaper changing. One night recently, I spooked some skinny old guy with a beard, and he tried to spit on me, but then he stumbled and fell into a newspaper box. He looked up at my daddy and said, "Fuck you, Moon." I guess moon is a bad word. My mom laughed about it at first, but then she grew more and more angry as she pushed me back home. She said she wouldn't take me through that neighborhood anymore. My mom can be tough, but she cries a lot too, maybe more than me. She has long dark hair and skinny arms and a nose that is so long and awesome that I can't stop looking at it. When she holds me in her arms and I feed on her tit milk, I stare right up into that nose. It's like looking into a volcano with 2 holes. I once dreamed I was a hawk and I flew around and around the holes of this double volcano, a figure 8 flight pattern. I got sucked in and fell into the hot lava, and then I flew out and I was dripping with lava until it turned solid and I was golden, a gold hawk. My mom told me about volcanoes once because that's my middle name, Tony Volcano Martinez. My mom's name is Jenny, or Baby, or Mom. Not all of them at once, though. You just pick one and say it. I am always confused when people call my mom Baby. I'm the baby, not her. We don't look anything alike. I say the word baby, and she adds it to my list of words, B-A-B-Y. So Mom starts taking me to this other neighborhood at night. I guess it's all right, but I miss the sounds and the smell of the one we used to go to. This new place smells like trees and baby powder. It's as quiet as trees and baby powder, too. Sometimes the air blows by us with the sound of a strummed guitar. To tell you the truth, I'm bored with it. So I fuss and throw my binky, and I throw my Hugo, and I throw my squishy stuffed cat, and I throw my plastic mirror. She pushes me faster like she's going to calm me down. I can hear her breathing hard, and I just know that she is gripping the handle of my stroller so hard. I can feel her tension flowing through it. I imagine that she's crushing the handle in her hands. They're crumbling like pretzels between her tight fingers. I want a pretzel. I wish I could say pretzel. Presso, I say. Presso! I scream it as loud as I can, which is pretty loud. I see some lights turning on all around us, people waking up. It's 2 o'clock in the morning! Someone finally shouts from a window. Shut up, your baby! The next day I have a play date over at Tater's apartment. He just turned 2 years old, so he's a little bit older than me. He knows how to say pretzel and even milkshake. His mom makes him milkshakes from her tit milk. Once I had a taste and it was pretty good. I like Tater's mom. She has a big nose too. I'm not sure what Tater's middle name is. My mom says it's Todd, Tater Todd Johnson. But I don't believe her. It would be like if my name was Peanut Butter. I want to tell Tater about my nighttime walks. I also want to know where he goes at night. We are playing with blocks and wood cars and fake babies and pretend food. Tater takes a pretend banana and a fake hammer and one of the babies and tells me to watch. He drags his big dollhouse over and shows me what they do at night at their house. I can tell he thinks it's really great, but I lose interest quickly. I scan Tater's room for any new toys or something interesting to chew on. Hey, Tater says, hey, look at how they sleep. I look back into the dollhouse and see the banana, hammer, and baby side by side on a miniature bed, so peaceful and sleepy. My mommy sleeps like this, he says. And then he turns the banana over and over. The hammer gets knocked off the bed. The baby tumbles off the bed. Then the banana snores. Be your mom, Tater says to me then. He holds out the plastic banana, but I just look at it and wince. It doesn't look like my mom. But I grab it from him and I make the banana walk around the outside of the house. Tater gets impatient and says, make your mom sleep. But I don't really know how my mom sleeps, if she sleeps. Tater's face gets serious and he asks me, does your mom sleep with my mom? I don't know the answer to this either. Some nights I see her open the curtains and stare out at my daddy in the sky. She tells me stories about him until I fall asleep. Daddy, I say to Tater, I'm still holding the fake banana. If it were real, I would peel it. I would take off a handful of it and squish it into a ball. I'd hold it up above the dollhouse, and it would be my pretend daddy. I would eat the banana and lay the empty peel on the miniature bed. A few days later, my mom goes out somewhere at night, leaving me with a babysitter. The babysitter is a girl named Brandy, and all she does is eat ice cream and text with her boyfriend. The TV is on even though it's not supposed to be. There are policemen on the TV, and they're driving around at night somewhere. I pretend that I'm playing with Legos on the floor, but I feel myself drawn to the images on the show. The neighborhood they drive around in looks like my neighborhood, and I am slyly watching. There is a woman with bright lipstick on the show that looks like a woman with bright lipstick that I've seen before. There is a man wearing a dirty baseball cap holding a cardboard sign that I think I've seen before. There is an alleyway with rats around the garbage cans that look familiar. There is a tipped over refrigerator, and there's a man with a gun and an angry look on his face, looking for him. They show the man again, then the police again. I wonder why I can see the man, but the police cannot. I am starting to feel anxious. Close-up of the gun in the man's hand. Close-up of the policeman's shoes. A rat runs by and makes a noise. I think I've seen that rat before, even though most people are scared of them. I admit that I get excited when I see a rat on the street. It's like seeing a wild animal or a secret friend. You shouldn't be watching this, Brandy says. She picks up the remote control and aims it at the screen. Right before the screen goes blank, I hear the music on the show get louder. It turns into a spike whistling through the air, and then they show my daddy. He is bright white against the black sky, and his face looks distorted and kind of hurt. Brandy picks me up and I start to cry. I want to go say, Daddy. Brandy puts me on the bed, and I point at the closest window and say, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. She opens the curtain a little, but I don't see Daddy. It's time for bed. Time to go to sleep, Brandy says. I lay in the dark and try to stop crying. I hear the TV come back on and the volume is lowered, but I'm trying to hear what is happening. I wish my daddy could talk, but I don't know what he would sound like. I listen for a long time, and then someone is telling jokes and laughter is coming out of the TV, but it doesn't make me feel better. Eventually I get out of bed and walk out to the front room. Brandy is still there, but has fallen asleep. I look at the clock, and it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and a couple of other numbers. I'm not sure what it means. I feel wet. I go into the bathroom and take my diaper off. It feels good to be naked. Sometimes I wish we could all live naked. Me, Mom, Tater's mom, the policeman on TV. I walk out of the bathroom naked and stand in front of Brandy. I hear her breathing and turning over this way and that, like the banana. I go over to the door and turn the knob. It opens and I look down the long hallway of our apartment building. I see the door at the end. I see the nighttime. Before I make my move, though, I should probably put on some clothes. First, I look for a new diaper, but I can't figure out where they are. I find a plastic bag full of smaller ones, though, and I carefully stick one on. I wish I didn't have to wear one, but I just started potty training and I haven't figured out how to pee straight, or why it's even important. For a long time, I thought everyone wore diapers and that toilets were just garbage cans with water inside, or a place where grown-ups sit and read when they're angry. I put on my new Thomas the Tank Engine t-shirt and Velcro strapped shoes. I especially like this new shirt because my daddy's on it too. Thomas is smiling and going down a train track, and my dad is right over him, shaped like a sliver and surrounded by stars. I grab a paper bag and put some food in it, and also some markers, my Apple Bell, and a toy cell phone in case I need them. I used to have a gun, but I think my mom took it away. She said guns are for bullies. Once I get outside, I realize it's a lot different when you're by yourself and you're not protected by a stroller. A desperate-looking man with red hair and pimples all over his face and arms asks me if I have any spare change, and then he blinks at me a bunch of times until his expression totally changes. "What's wrong with you?" he says. "You used to be cool, and now you're just like some kind of alien." I don't know what he's talking about, so I just point to my shirt. "Daddy," I say, pointing to my heart. "Whatever," he says, and grabs my bag from me. He pulls out a plastic cup of pudding and rips the foil off of the top and smells it. I say, "Mine," but can only watch as he shakes a big glob of it into his open mouth. I'm starting to worry about my food. What if I run out before morning? What if I starve? "These are my favorite cookies," the man says, and I see him eating my Oreos. It makes me so angry that I lunge for his throat. "Cookies! Mine!" I scream up at him, and though I can't reach his throat, I do flail my arms as hard as I can all over his diaper area, and he spits up black and white slobbery crumbs and falls down on the sidewalk. You freaky ass bastard," he yells at me, and I grab my bag and run away. A couple of people stare at me and point as I scamper to the next block. I look for the policemen that I saw on TV, but I can't find them. I look in the sky and don't see Daddy. I spin in a circle looking up. I walk up to the corner and spin around again. Where did my dad go? In one of the stories that my mom tells me, she tries to explain why Daddy goes on vacation sometimes. She says he has to go to the other side of the world and shine on other children who need love too. Daddy has a lot of love to give, is what she says. She always says this with a sad smile, though. I understand that other babies have dads that aren't that are real grown-ups. I see them at the park during the daytime when it's especially hot, and I have to wear Elvis glasses so the sun planet doesn't hurt my eyes. I tug on my mom's dress and point at one man and say, "Daddy?" And she says, "Yes, that is Maggie's daddy. He's a bus driver." And then I point at another and ask more eagerly, "Daddy?" And she says, "That is Roger. He's Raphael's daddy. He works at the hospital." I keep an eye on those daddies. I see them chasing their kids through the play structure, pushing them on the swings, cutting crust off of sandwiches. I sometimes wonder if those daddies could be my daddy. What is my dad doing up there anyway? Sometimes I wish my dad were just a bus driver or a hospital worker. Now a lady is walking up to me. She is wearing clothes that look like underwear. She looks like a woman on a magazine, so much hair around her face like a beautiful lion. She has pretty brown skin, and her shoes are very tall. I notice that she has a limp and a Band-Aid on her arm. Hey baby," she says, looking at me strangely. "What are you doing with that thing?" She reaches over and grabs my diaper and tears it off of me. Part of me feels scared, but part of me feels happy to be naked. A man wearing a shiny tracksuit and a gold watch comes over and says, "What are you doing, Nikki? Is this your baby?" "No," the woman says, "but he had a maxi pad stuck to him and I really need one." The woman looks at the man and lights a cigarette. "You gonna call the cops?" she asks. The man shoots her a look like she's crazy, and then he stops another woman walking by. "Hey grandma, call the cops on this baby here, or go buy it a diaper, or take it to the pound or something." "Fuck you," the woman says. "I'm only 38 and I'm working." As they argue, I walk away quickly and keep my eyes on the sky. I hear one of them shout, "That baby's getting away." I run and I run fast. I'm the fastest baby on the block. I find the alleyway that I saw on TV earlier, and I hide in the shadows until I feel like it's safe to come out. I creep out from behind a dumpster and almost trip over a guy slouched against a wall with some kind of big rubber band wrapped around his arm. He looks like a teenager and his hair is green, standing out like neon in the darkness. "Holy shit," he says, "are you real?" For some reason, I like him right away, so I stand there half naked, not caring, and I try to use new words. "I'm Tony," I say. Then I say my full name, Tony Volcano Martinez. I empty the plastic bag that I have with me and I give him my Apple Bell. "Apple Bell," I say. "Apple Bell," he says back. "Shake it," I say. He does, and we laugh. "You're not a fake baby, are you? Like a cop?" he says. He shifts a little and I see something sticking out of his arm like he's giving himself an allergy shot. I wonder if he works at a hospital. "I'm looking for a man with a gun," I say, "and I'm looking for my dad too." The young man is confused and it looks like his eyes are closing. "This has been really fun," he says, handing the Apple Bell back to me. "Good night," he says. "But wait," I say. "This is what my dad looks like." I point to my shirt. "Your dad looks like Thomas the Tank Engine?" "No, right here." I poke myself in the chest. "The moon," he says. And he looks around the best he can, craning his neck this way and that way. "He was here last night," he says. Then he wags his finger at me like he's teaching me something and says, "He's not out every night. Sometimes he's on vacation." Suddenly, I see a swirl of lights in the alley and a police car rolls up to us with barely a sound. It's the policeman from the TV. They look at me and smile and the driver says, "You must be the runaway baby." There's no baby seat in the car, so the policeman who's not driving has to hold me in his lap in the back seat. They're asking me questions, but now I don't have the right words to answer them. I'm back to mom, mine, and elbow. As we pull up to the apartment where my mom is waiting outside and visibly shaking with nerves, I see a small bright orb in the sky. It looks further away than my dad usually is, and it's covered by a thin, patchy cloud slowly drifting in front of him. I can't make out a face or eyes or mouth, but the soft glow of him makes me feel safe again. The golden light flickers through the clouds. The golden light winks at me.
Wow. You make me scared to be a father. I know. What do you think, Rachel? Wow. Lock these things up. Now more Rachel Flotard and Bob Hunter.
That was amazing. My mom told me, she found out after the fact, but I'd walked out of our house as a 2-year-old around the corner and into the street. She was working, but my dad was there with both of his parents. There were 3 people watching me. And I cruised out the back door, and I had a diaper on. All I could say was, Rachel Flotard, 55 Everett Street, close to New Jersey. And my neighbor was driving down the block and was like, here's a kid in a diaper. And then there was a knock at the door, and I was perched on his shoulder, and my dad opened the door. He's like, the guy's like, you missing something? And they didn't tell my mom for a month. Oh, parenthood, I can't wait. Okay, ready, Barb?
Yes.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. The stairs down the hall, not like a Sunday came, but you woke up my mind for the moment you had waited. You were the one side of me I never quite understood. You are the wrong and right of me, and everything that's good. I sent you off like a letter to another bad neighborhood, when you could have sent me. Some road on for the moment that's worth waiting for. But you stood up in a line when you rolled forward, saying, you were the one side of me I never quite understood. You are the wrong and right of me, and everything that's good. But I sent you off in a letter to another bad neighborhood, when you could have sent me. You were the one side of me I never quite understood. You are the wrong and right of me, and everything that's good. But I sent you off in a letter to another bad neighborhood, when you could have sent me. You could have sent me.
There we go. Welcome back, everyone. We are into some more literary series. Wonderful. Well, before we get to the literary series, someone left a credit card at the bar after they paid. It is a Sears MasterCard. So if you happen to have a Sears MasterCard, we don't want to say your name and embarrass you. But you should go to the bar after the show. It's safe. No one is going to charge a bunch of drinks on your card. No, it's not open. Put it on the Sears card. All right. So welcome back, and now more Rachel Flotard and Bob Hunter.
Getting a workout here. Are you tired now?
No, I'm not tired, I'm ready to go.
Tires easily.
Not what?
She tires easily.
It's just your lungs get pushed up into your neck. So you can't really do anything easily. It's like being in Colorado all the time. And that's not too cool. I think this is the last time that Barb and I will be up here for the evening, but I just wanted to say thank you to Kevin and Nicole and to Sherman for the Hugo House for having us. Those readings were absolutely outstanding. Thank you so much for having us here. And this song I actually started in the summer when I first got the prompt from Brian, and then I went on KUOW with Sherman, and so I kind of road tested this, but it was written about the theme. But Sherm, you may remember this number from our earlier works together. Oh, and it's about you, and it's called I Love Sherman. But don't tell my baby daddy.
The day that you left me, I made up my bed. Made such perfect sense, I reckon I made it again. But it won't let go of you. I wasn't ready when you said goodbye. Sand in my hair, spots in my eyes, and I won't let go of you.
lovely to pack this space for great writing on a cold, wet Friday. I love that. Thank you for being here. My name is Mariah C. Kaminsky. I am a writer and a performer based here in Seattle. And I'm very, very proud to be a part of Hugo House's programming this season. Right now, for Hugo House, I am writing a new one-woman play that is actually more of a rock musical than a play, and actually has more than one woman in it. But it's about love, guns, and Bonnie and Clyde. It's called Riddled. Hugo House commissioned it, and it's going to have its world premiere here in this space on June 1st. Coming, I can hear it. But I'm not here to plug my show, though it is going to be pretty amazing, and I really hope you'll all come. No, I'm here tonight to deliver you some facts. Are you ready for some facts?
Yes.
Sweet. Fact number 1. There is no organization in this region doing more to foster writers and their work than Richard Hugo House, or the world. Not a fact, but I have a hunch. Through the programming, through the fellowships, the residencies, the classes, Hugo House is a true artistic incubator for the literary community here in Seattle and arguably in the nation. Fact number 2. Almost 80% of the events held at Hugo House last year were absolutely free to the public. So that means not only are they developing incredible writing, but they are also making that writing accessible to our entire community. Your ticket price that you paid to be here tonight covers only a very tiny portion of the costs that are necessary to keep those programs alive. Fact number 3. It's a big one. Writers need support. They really do. They need community and resources and time and space. And this place is not just a haven for creative work, but it is like a hotbed for creative work. By supporting artists like the tremendous writers we have had up here tonight to continue to challenge themselves and to create and take risks and be able to do that. This tonight is how art happens. Through patronage. Very few of us hit a big break and make $1 million. It happens like this through commissions and collaborations and by sharing resources and ideas and space. So for that reason, we need Hugo House. And it just so happens that right about now, Hugo House also needs us. That is a fact. Number 4 and a half. We need to raise, as in raise up to great purpose, $58,000 before the end of the year. So, in your programs, you may recognize them here. There is a white envelope for giving. You can check now if you have one. I'm pretty sure you do. Does anyone need one? I have an extra one. Great. Well, I invite you to join me tonight, maybe after you are basking in the afterglow of Sherman Alexie's masterpiece, to make a gift of any size to make sure that Hugo House continues to thrive and make sure we all have someplace wonderful to go on a cold November night to hear great reading and have good company. Your contribution is how this happens. So thank you for that. And I hope to see you at Riddled on June 1st. Thanks.
So I've seen a little bit of Mariah's show, and it is going to kick ass. So I would recommend coming to it in June. She's wonderful. Of course. And now we are at the end here. Our final read of this evening, Sherman Alexie. Who is not a stranger to Hugo House. He's read so many times. Filmed parts of his movie, The Business of Fancy Dancing, in our bathtub. He also surprised us one day with a film crew and a measuring tape, demanding to see if anyone on staff had a bigger head than he did. Mine was closest, and I promised him it would be as big as his when I published 22 books like he has. For those 22 books, Sherman has won numerous awards, including the American Book Award for Reservation Blues, the Hemingway Foundation Pen Award for The Lone Ranger and Tonto Fistfight in Heaven, and the National Book Award for The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. Sherman, Sherman has also received the Stranger Genius Award, a Boston Globe Horn Book Award, a Pushcart Prize, the Penn Malamud Award, and a citation as one of the 20 best American novelists under the age of 40 from Granta Magazine. Please welcome to the stage, Sherman Alexie.
Nicole, when she was reading and through it, I kept thinking of the Pixies and then Nirvana. That sort of loud, 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 loud. And then the amazing soft at the end there, with all that pain and hope and sorrow, was really amazing. And Kevin's story, I was listening to it as an audience member, going, "Oh, this is great." But as a writer too, listening to the architecture and the tightrope walk of it. So I was going, wow, this is incredible, and also thinking, how the fuck is he getting away with this? So, it really was a feat of literary architecture, and I'm really jealous. Bastard. The only comfort I have with him right now is that he works at an independent bookstore. And then what you don't know is that Rachel's baby is mine. Which is going to surprise my wife, but and it's actually going to surprise me because I had a vasectomy 8 years ago. So I guess Rachel and I are giving birth to Jesus. I just saw a red-headed Indian Jesus. Which I think is what Jesus should be. So thank you all for coming, and thank you, Hugo House. I love it here. And my favorite part of the evening, years from now, is going to be when like 3 people clapped for Amazon. Sorry, Brian. And nobody from Amazon's here, so it's okay. And also to let you know that the money I am getting tonight from Amazon is going directly to the Edgar Martinez Foundation, which supports and gives money to brown-skinned teachers who want to teach in brown-skinned schools. So. Direct transfer. The money's never even going to make it into my damn account. So this is an essay that combines elements of poetry, fiction, nonfiction, and improv. It's called Fuck You, Insomnia. Nightmare, nightmare, nightmare. Here come the nightmares, nightmare. Here comes the nightmares, nightmare, nightmare. Upon arrival, I collect my baggage and walk across the bridge into the parking structure, where I discover, to my embarrassment, that I've been gone too long and have forgotten where I left my damn car. From floor to floor, aisle to aisle, I walk and walk, searching, growing weary and angry. My bags are heavy, too heavy. So I leave them by an elevator and hope that I can find my car and return to them before a thief steals them or airport security confiscates and destroys what they think could be an explosive device. Finally, I think to look in my wallet for my parking stub, and I find it. And yes, I've written down the row and number, so I rush to that location and find an unfamiliar car, a small black hatchback that disturbingly resembles an insect. This isn't my car. But I insert my key into the lock and it works, so this must be my car. I take the driver's seat and insert the key into the ignition, but the engine will not turn over. The battery is dead. I have no power. And then I smell something sweet and sickening. I know that smell. It's death. Suddenly terrified, I look into the back seat and see what must be a body wrapped in garbage bags. Jesus. I want to run. But I need to know who is dead in the back seat of this car. This must not be my car. So I pull back the garbage bag over the corpse's head, and it's my father. Oh God, it's my father. What is his body doing here? We buried him 8 years ago on the reservation. I threw a handful of dirt on his coffin, and yet, here he is. And his body is strangely preserved, as if he had just died yesterday. And then I am rocked backward when I notice that my father is breathing shallowly. I leap over the seat and land on my father. I shake and shake him, but he will not wake. I shake and shake him, but he will not wake. He will not open his eyes. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. I pound on his chest, on his heart, and I slap his face, and I grab him by the shoulders and shake until he opens his eyes, barely conscious, barely aware, and I scream at him to come back to me, come back to me, come back to me, but he falls into sleep, so I punch him in the face and bloody his nose, and I punch him in the gut, and I hear the air escape his lungs, and I punch him in the crotch, and that does the trick. My father sits up straight and his eyes snap open wide and he looks at me. He sees me and he asks, "Where have you been? Where have you been?" And I say, "I've been on a trip, a journey away from home, but I'm here now, Dad, and I'm not leaving again, and I will stay with you." And I ask, "But how are you here? How are you alive?" And he says, I don't know. And then I'm awake. I sit up in bed, it's cold. Our furnace is too small to properly heat our house during a serious freeze. But wait, it's not freezing outside. It's unseasonably warm. And then I realize that something is in the bedroom with me. I'm alone here because my wife is sleeping beside our sick son in his bedroom. Perhaps our other son has found his way into this room, but no. Something large is standing in the corner. Oh God, it's a ghost. It's my father's ghost. No, it's my grief, and it opens its mouth, and it wails so loud that it hurts to hear. My eardrums vibrate, and so I snap on the lamp and realize that my grief is not standing in the corner. It's not a ghost either. It's a bookshelf. I was frightened by a bookshelf. This is funny, so I laugh and I lie back down thinking that I might find a way back to sleep, but instead I weep for my father. I weep my father. He's been dead for 8 years, When he died, I cut my long hair by custom. I can grow back my hair when my grief abates, but oh, my grief floods my bedroom tonight. My bed becomes a raft and I float up toward the ceiling. I bump against the ceiling. I am crushed against the ceiling and I can't breathe. I can't. Perhaps I am dying. Perhaps my grief will murder me. Perhaps my grief will wrap my corpse in garbage bags and leave it in the back seat of a strange car parked at the airport. Oh, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. As the grief blood crushes my lungs against the ceiling, I become a part of the ceiling. I am the ceiling. And then suddenly, I am awake again. Fuck, it was a dream within a dream. No, a nightmare inside a nightmare. And I'm sitting on an airplane weeping. Beside me, a woman in a business suit is also weeping. Are you okay? I ask her, and she smiles and says, I'm crying because you were crying in your sleep. And I couldn't wake you up. None of us could wake you. And so the pilot is now making an emergency landing in Pittsburgh. There's an ambulance waiting for you. But I'm awake now, I think, but don't say. And I know I must stop the pilot from landing this plane, so I race to the cockpit door and pound and pound and pound and pound on the thin metal frame, forgetting we live in the age of terror and I'm an ambiguously ethnic male. And so I have unwittingly become a threat to the safety of this plane and its passengers. And I am knocked to the floor and buried beneath a dozen men who punch and kick me, who gouge my eyes and chew on my fingers and ears. I don't fight back, I don't fight back, I don't fight back, I don't fight back. And then I do fight back. I am suddenly so strong that nothing can defeat me. I toss the men aside and I smash through the cockpit door, and I am once again shocked to see my father, who is now the pilot of this plane. And we are plummeting toward the ground. We are going to crash, he says. All of us are going to crash. And I say, I know, I know, I know, I know. And I try to keep my eyes open. I want to see what happens to us. And as the ground rises to meet us, I see that it is beautiful. The world is beautiful. My father is beautiful. I am beautiful. Death is beautiful. And oh, I lean against the force of my grief, and I know that I will wake again. I know this is a dream, a nightmare, but I want to stay here for a little while longer. I want to keep plummeting with my father, the pilot. So I stagger. I stagger into the empty co-pilot seat, and I take the controls. And together, my father and I try to pull us out of this spectacular dive. Dear readers, while you were sleeping, I was having nightmares. While you were sleeping, my fear of nightmares was keeping me awake. While you were sleeping lovely and warm in your clean white sheets, I was driving around the 3 a.m. Seattle streets trying to decide if I should eat at Denny's, IHOP, or Sherry's. I didn't want to go to any of the hipster 24-hour joints and eat a 5-pound omelet made of dinosaur eggs. Because I don't like to hang out with white guys with odd facial hair in daylight, let alone in the middle of the night. While you were sleeping, your stomach grew empty and stretched and reached toward that wonderful breakfast you were going to have, while I was eating 3,800 calories of flour, sugar, syrup, and butter. While you were sleeping, I was gaining weight. While you were sleeping, I got a little skinnier by exercising at that 24-hour joint in Ballard. While you were sleeping, I was playing racquetball by myself in Ballard, Washington. While you were sleeping, I was standing alone and naked beneath the locker room shower head in Ballard, Washington. Sometimes I fell asleep standing in that shower. Imagine the shock if you turned the corner at 4:15 a.m. and saw a chubby Indian man stalling tall and naked as he slept and slept and slept until the water turned cold and woke him. While you were sleeping, I was parking my car and walking my neighborhood. I was walking your neighborhood. You might think it would be dangerous to walk the Seattle streets at 3:30 a.m., but it's not. Everybody, including the bad guys, are asleep. And anyway, this is Seattle, the only city in the country where white people live comfortably on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Where our worst high school sits across the street from a yacht club. Where street crime is so rare and strange that every instance makes the nightly local news. While you were sleeping, I was pausing beneath your open bedroom windows. While you were sleeping, I heard you call out for your mothers and fathers. I heard you call out for your lovers and spouses. I heard you call out for that love you have never forgotten. While you were sleeping, I heard you sleeping, and I hated you for your ability to sleep. While you were sleeping, I wandered the aisles at the 24-hour pharmacy in Lower Queen Anne, looking for something to help me sleep. Ginseng, vitamin D, Men's Health Magazine, Vicks Vapor Rub. I contemplated acting like a crazy man in the dental aisle so the graveyard pharmacist would call the police, who'd take me to the psych ward at Harborview where some sleep-deprived medical resident would tranquilize my ass. The sleep of Valium. Oh, Valium, my love. Oh, Valium, mon amour. While you were sleeping, I did not take drugs to sleep. I did not take the sleeping drugs that were prescribed for me. I did not take the non-prescription drugs that had been suggested. I'm already an alcoholic. I'm already an addict. I can't take drugs. I can't become addicted to the drugs that are supposed to help me sleep. I can't sleep. And when you can't sleep, you become exhausted. And when you can't sleep, you become sick in body and soul. And when you can't sleep, you begin to hallucinate. And when you can't sleep, you become psychotic. In May of 2010, after 2.5 years of fugue states, hallucinations, and psychotic episodes, I entered a mental health rehabilitation facility where I was diagnosed with bipolar and obsessive compulsive disorder and a near soldier's case of post-traumatic stress syndrome due to years of childhood physical, mental, emotional, and sexual abuse. In other words, I was diagnosed as being a Native American in the 21st century. Of course, I was in rehab with dozens of Dante's stepchildren. None of them were Indians, but they were in so much pain I gave them Indian names. Millionaire meth head, rock star porn freak, Uncle Creepy, sad little girl, sad little boy who was really a girl, sad little girl who was really a boy, cigarette burns, antelope limping on the Serengeti. Yeah, it was that last name I could have given to everybody in the joint. All of us were antelope limping on the Serengeti. All of us were prey animals. And our predators, our carnivorous lions, were mostly our families. Nearly every one of my fellow patients had been raped by their fathers and mothers and uncles and aunts and older siblings and cousins and babysitters. And considering the vast array of professions and incomes among those victims, it made me realize that sexual abuse isn't uncommon. It is, for lack of a better term, predictable. But let's get something out of the way. Before you think I'm going to launch into some healing memoir-esque language, some Oprah-fied bullshit about recovery, I have to tell you something that I know to be absolutely true. Nearly everybody in rehab was a complete and total asshole. Just a bunch of selfish, self-involved, arrogant, self-pitying enemas. And why do I call them enemas instead of douchebags? Because douchebags only refers to an archaic device used on women. It's a vagina-centric insult. But enema, now there's a gender-neutral insult. We all have assholes, and we all at one point or another have shit streaming out of them. We are all made of waste. It's just that some of us, especially the addicts in rehab, are walking, talking receptacles of that waste. We are the creators and collectors of waste. Yeah, I was one of them. I am a selfish, self-involved, self-pitying, arrogant enema. And even as I say that, I hear my therapist's voice. Sherman, self-loathing is just another form of arrogance. Ping pong in rehab. It doesn't feel good to skunk a drunk. After I slammed the ball and hit and killed a moth in mid-flight, my failed suicide attempt opponent said it all reminded him of his dead father. A right-handed speed freak killed me while playing with his left hand. There wasn't a budget for extra balls, so when we dented the last one, we just played with it. The random bounces turned it into an entirely different game. We called that game Dead Fathers. During a high-speed match between the two best players, the beautiful anorexic said the blurred paddles and ball looked like a meteor storm flying between two moons. After I slammed the ball into a window, the counselor said, "Don't worry, they're bulletproof." Seeing the look of alarm on my face, she said, "Or maybe not." At midnight, the temperature was 101 degrees. The sweat made Rorschach stains on the table. One of them looked like my dead father. Yes, I played against famous addicts. None of them were any good. There's no correlation between perfect pitch and hand-eye coordination. A bipolar woman picked up the paddle, pointed to the empty space beside her, and said, "Do you want to play us doubles?" After I beat her, or them, the bipolar woman asked, "Of course you know that bipolar and multiple personality disorders are very different things." "Yes," I said, "I know they're different. Do you want to play me and me again?" Insomniacs are often overweight. Instead of sleeping, they eat. One of the best players was an obese dude who hadn't slept a full night in 34 years. He talked about that last good night like other people talk about high school lovers. There were no mosquitoes in the desert. We could play all night and not get bit. "Too bad," the heroin addict said. "I could have pretended they were tiny flying hypodermic needles." Have you ever seen a swarm of mosquitoes drunk on an alcoholic's blood? Flying unsteadily through the dark. They all look like dead fathers. When I was 6 months old, I was diagnosed with hydrocephalus and went directly into brain surgery. Standing in the waiting room, the pediatric neurosurgeon, a Greek Muslim, by the way. And it's amazing to think that a Greek Muslim saved a reservation Indian boy's life in 1966. Some people get freaked out when you think of Muslims, but not me. I say, thank Allah. Anyway, that Greek Muslim surgeon looked at my mother and he said, "Your son is not going to survive this surgery. And even if he does, he's going to be severely mentally damaged. If your son wakes up, he's going to be a vegetable." My mom looked at him and she asked, "What kind of vegetable?" At least that's what she's always told me. But as you know, the full of shit apple doesn't fall from the lying ass apple tree. Anyway, I survived the surgery. I wouldn't be standing here if I wasn't. But on the many indirect and direct side effects of that surgery. The major one was insomnia. I was a baby who could not sleep. My father also could not sleep. His father was killed on Okinawa, World War II in 1946. 6 months later, my father's mother died of leukemia, died of tuberculosis, a death as bloody and violent as any during war. So my father was a war orphan. I was raised by a war orphan. And the bullet that killed my grandfather mortally wounded my father and critically wounded my siblings and I. He did not sleep. I had my first seizure in his arms. He was watching The Tonight Show. I was watching The Tonight Show. I was 8 months old. And the theme song came on. And there was a note in the theme song, da-da-da-da-da, that set me off. It would always set me off. It still makes me worried when I hear it. And so the night came, and I went into a seizure. Except my father thought I was dancing. Oh, Junior, oh my little fancy dancer, yeah, 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 it's grand entry, yeah, yeah, yeah. But then my eyes rolled back in my head. Oh shit, Lillian! I had my own insomnia, and I inherited my father's insomnia. I could not sleep. It was made worse because my father was a random, roaming, nomadic alcoholic. At home, he was sober and silent, but when he drank, he left. And he would leave for days, weeks, sometimes months at a time, and I would wait for him to come back. I wouldn't go to sleep because I was afraid I would miss him. I would stand at the front window at any time of the night and cry and cry and cry my father's name. I wanted him to come home. I wanted to come home. And day after day, week after week, month after month, I cried myself into the emergency room. I would not eat. I would not drink. I would just grieve. And when he came home, I wouldn't let him out of my sight. I knew if I slept, he would leave again, so I would not sleep. I could not sleep. He'd go into the bathroom, and I'd sit at the door. I'd crawl to the door, and I would knock on it, saying, "Daddy, are you still there? Are you still there? Are you still there?" I could not sleep. I would not sleep. Why was I in rehab? Why couldn't I sleep? Why was I so sad? When I was 8 years old, my cousin, 17, with the promise of a basket full of comic books, took me into a back bedroom and raped me. He's been raping me ever since. On the home page for my tribe's website, his is the first picture that pops up. My cousin, the rapist, represents my tribe. My cousin, the rapist, was the head man dancer at the powwow 3 years ago. When I was 9, a white kid moved in next door. His big sister had married the Indian guy next door, and he'd been getting in trouble. So he moved to the reservation. What kind of white kid moves to a reservation to get away from trouble? Nobody liked him. He was scary. He was too big for his age, and his eyes held too much. One summer day, he came across 6 of us playing in the back forest, and he kidnapped us with a pellet gun. It was play, it was play, it was play. He took us into an abandoned trailer, and he proceeded to sexually abuse everybody. After he did that, he dragged us into a chicken coop, wired the door shut, made us take off our clothes, and shot us again and again with that pellet gun. And he took us back into the trailer, took one of us into a back bedroom, and we could hear awful things happening. Afraid for my life, I ran for the window, half cracked, half broken already, and jumped through it. I still have a huge scar on my elbow. I'd always wondered why during my performances I would touch that arm over and over again. People would wonder. It got reviewed. People mentioned it in the New York Times. Sherman Alexie has a strange and nervous habit of touching his right elbow. At the time, I didn't know why I was doing it. I didn't remember jumping through the window. I didn't remember cutting my arm. I didn't remember running home and telling my parents what had happened. But I do remember that nothing happened. There was no punishment, no talk, no investigations, no protection. It wasn't that nobody believed us. It was that it was so expected, so predictable, that it didn't matter. Nine years later, I was sitting in my girlfriend's house watching the late news. And that kid, now a man, face popped up on the screen. He had just been arrested for kidnapping, raping, and murdering 2 girls in Spokane, Washington, and setting fire to their bodies. I don't think that sentence is going to make it into my author bio. Sherman Alexie, winner of the National Book Award, the PEN-Faulkner Award, was once kidnapped by a future serial killer. Why can't I sleep? 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 Expo 1974. My sister is babysitting me in Spokane. She's married to a white guy, a drug dealer. I'm upstairs. They think I'm asleep. They must think I can sleep. I don't know why they know I can't sleep when I hear noises from downstairs. Strange noises. I'm just a kid. And I walk down the stairs and I peer through the railings into the living room, and my sister and her husband and 15 or 16 other people are having an orgy. I watch this. I don't quite understand it, but it's something that at once excites me, scares me, and revolts me. I leave the house. Expo 74 is going on. People are camping there, other Indians. So I walk from trailer to trailer, knocking on a door, trying to find an Indian family that will let me in. And nobody does. So I walk onto the grounds, crawl under into one of the fake teepees in the Native American exhibit, and sleep next to the fake Indian doll. Nobody misses me. I wake up in the morning and sneak back out, and I spend the whole day wandering Expo by myself. I'm 8 years old. I remember the Japanese exhibit the most, but nobody else remembers it like I do, or remembers it even existing like I do. For some reason, I remember 2 Japanese kids fighting with a giant can of Raid, a swarm of bees. Everybody insists that was not the Japanese exhibit. Internet research has led me to believe that was not the Japanese exhibit. But it's all I remember. It was two kids fighting a swarm of bees. I'm allergic to bees. The last time I was stung was on the face while I was eating a snow cone at the All Indian Rodeo in Welpinit. My mom packed mud on it and her spit and took me to the emergency room. There's a photo of me. I look like the Elephant Man. I was in the hospital for 7 days. And I did not sleep then either. What does all this do to us? What does this make us become? I'm not the only one. In fact, I'm the lucky one. What happens to us Indian boys? We remember catching praying mantises during our reservation childhood and putting two primordial gladiator jocks into a shoebox for a battle. And oh, we Indian boys would shake the death rattle for our favorite warrior mantises. Remember, this was before casinos, so any reservation might as well have been next door to Atlantis. Hell, we were so far removed from you and you and you during those terminal years, we'd give the most deadly mantises fighter names, like Bloodthirsty or Killer Monk, but we'd also give them cute and ironic names like Socks or Smells Like Skunk. And we, brother upon brother, cheered as one mantis slaughtered the other. We'd give the victorious mantis as reward one grasshopper from our hoard of living food. Crude and cruel, we tore off the hopper's legs and wings and turned them into these limbless things. Damn, it was wrong. So last week, feeling like we'd crashed through the ceiling and concussed our souls, like we'd evolved and adapted into kinder primates, we discussed our options and called our mothers from our homes in Seattle and asked them if any of the new reservation kids, casino rich and new car cool and newly cruel, also collected, trained, and battled mantises. No, my mother said, we haven't seen a praying mantis in years. We think they're all dead. What happened? What happened? We remember one mantis captured at night with a flashlight that refused to fight. In the box, it paused, retracted its forelegs and those alien claws, turned its head with that heart-shaped face and red eyes, and surprise, surprise, it stared at us. In seconds, it seemed to take this evolutionary leap and suddenly see we Indian boys as we were. We swear it became self-aware and aware of us. It regarded us. It judged us. Then with great speed and cannibal need, the opponent mantis, smaller but more aggressive, decapitated the one who would not fight. Can a mantis commit suicide? Did that mantis crucify itself because of our sins? Who knows what a mantis thinks, if it thinks at all? Or if it's all reflex of hunt and eat and sex. Jesus, we Indian boys were bones broken through skin. We thin and thinner were raped and pillaged by time and color and faith and dozens of cousins. And after our escape into the rafters took revenge on the human race and every last son in outer space by slaughtering hundreds, thousands of mantises. I doubt that we killed enough to eradicate them from the res, but we, the grandchildren and great-grandchildren of genocide, were dedicated to blood and mud and bone. And now, a generation later, we've decided to gather every fall to call back what we destroyed. Oh, we'll make a glorious noise. Oh, we'll carve runes in a cask filled with burning brush and trash and rush to dance as if we have a chance to be redeemed. We Indian boys. Once gorgeous dreamers, but now unyoung and unpretty, and relocated from the reservation to the city, will dance, dance, dance as compensation. This is our holy task. We'll honor the dead by wearing eagle feathers and mantis masks. In rehab, I spent 65 days sleeping next to the nurse's station. I kind of fell in love with all of them. And I think they kind of fell in love with me. White women like Indian boys, especially the sad ones. We're all sad. I slept next to the nurse's station because I had nightmares every night. I've had nightmares every night since I was 2 or 3 years old. And it's not a good thing to put a nightmaring Indian in the same room with a bipolar white guy. Like cancels like. Over 65 days, I was counseled, therapied, ridiculed, challenged, comforted. I slept in that room next to the nurse's stations, and night after night, I heard the sex addicts creep nearby, unscrew the outdoor light bulb, and fuck beneath my window. I was jealous. I missed my wife. During the 115-degree days, I was the only one on the basketball court. I'd shoot and shoot and shoot and hope somebody would come play, but they were in the pool, and I can't swim. Because growing up, it hurt my head too much to be underwater. Because growing up, if you went anywhere near the water, the bullies would shove you under and hold you until you thought you would die. I'm afraid of water. After 65 days, 30 in regular therapy and 35 in postgraduate work. After 35 days of discovering that, yes, you can buy $1,800 worth of food at Safeway, I came home. I came home having slept for 27 days in a row. I came home on the right medication. These days, my sons wake me up. They crawl into bed with me because I sweat like a maniac and I'm hotter than hell. And on a cold, rainy Seattle morning, it feels like magic to them. Not so much for my wife. I'm self-conscious. Especially self-conscious at that point. My friends knew I'd been away, and I was coming back to them. One of them, after we played basketball a few times, said, "Sherman, you're not so pissed off." I said, "What do you mean?" And he says, "You haven't yelled irrationally at anybody else." And I hadn't until last night. I screamed at a player last night for being an asshole, yes, but also for playing in a way that could cause injury to an old bastard like me. Afterward, I felt guilty. I called my wife from outside the bar where we go after the games, and I said, I just yelled at this guy like I haven't done since I've been back from rehab. She said, "Were they your emotions?" I said, "I think so." She said, "Was it your mania talking?" And I said, "No." She said, "Was it your depression talking?" And I said, "No." She goes, "Well, then what was talking?" I said, "What was talking in my head was that guy's a fucking asshole." And she said, "Okay, then that sounds like progress to me." I sleep. I sleep. I sleep. I don't have nightmares. I sleep. I don't have nightmares. I sleep. But my grief does not abate. My grief does not abate. My grief does not abate. I miss my father so much. I miss all of my fathers. Who brings a drum to a funeral? Who tells dirty jokes? Who laughs so hard that Diet Pepsi geysers out of her nose? Who brings a drum to a funeral? Who uses the bacon grease to make fry bread and apple pie? Who puts his hand on his third cousin's thigh? Who brings a drum to a funeral? Who asks a Jesuit if he's naked beneath his nightgown? Who uses dynamite to dig a grave in the frozen ground? Who brings a drum to a funeral? Let this goodbye be Coyote's wet dream. The only shaman is the shaman of ice cream. In his coffin, our father is cold to the touch. He's dead, dead, dead. There is nothing to touch. His skin is no longer skin. His eyes are no longer eyes. His bones are no longer bones. He is a fossilized hive. If I picked him up, I could shake him, shaping like a gourd rattle. I could shake him like a gourd rattle. Let this goodbye be a death scream. The only shaman is the shaman of ice cream. I miss my father. I miss my father. I don't want to be my father. I don't want to be awake like my father. While you were sleeping, I was sleeping too.
Hope to see you all back here again for the second half of our literary series in February with Heather McHugh, Lydia Yupovich, Chad Gola-Sojourner, and Alex Guy of Led to See. And then in March with Sam Lipsyte, Ben Lerner, Suzanne Morrison, and Tomo Nakayama of Grand Hallway. And if you can't wait that long, we have Write-A-Rama coming up in a couple of weekends here at the house. You can write all day. We also have a show coming up with David Schmader, a short-term solution to a long-term problem. That's another show that we're commissioning, and it's going to launch here in January. And then Mariah again in June. Thank you all for coming again. Good night, and sleep tight.